We're being recorded. We have a guest today, Elise Horning. Welcome, Elise.
Thank you.
Hi, Elise.
Hi, how are you guys?
Ah, okay, we see you.
See me? I'm down in Virginia, so I live here and then we have a house in Montclair, so I go back and forth. So I just kind of wanted to get an idea of some of the committees so that when we
Okay.
finally live there, then I can spend some time helping out.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Here she
Uh,
is.
Is that Meg? Okay. All right.
So not to take notes now.
Did everybody have a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a
Yes.
motion to accept the minutes?
So Tim, there was a statement that I made that I didn't understand in the minutes.
Okay,
It had to do with funding of $250,000. And I think what I was trying to ask is whether we had come up with a SAL that used our full funds. No,
We don't have any funds. What do you mean?
that allowed them to use.
Them to use the full funds? I don't know.
Okay, but that was not how it came out in the minutes, so I just wanted to clarify that.
yeah, I actually asked Coco about that. I didn't quite understand. I remember you asking a question about that, but I didn't quite remember the particulars.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we
got-
should just take it out because I don't understand what it says. I don't understand. That's not what I was trying to ask. And
We've been given relatively little insight into how those funds would be expended internally within DOE.
right, exactly.
And it says 250,000 down in the minutes too.
Yeah.
I thought it was
that's not
200.
what I
I
just said.
thought it was 200.
Oh,
That was my understanding too, that it was 200,000 and that would cover the various expenses of the folks, doing the work at NREL. And they would just manage expenses on their end to fit within that budget. And that's why they were telling us we may be able to, we have to be careful about what projects we want them to look at. And they'll kind of cost it out based on the preliminary analysis of what would make sense to look at more deeply, which is the more expensive part of the analysis. So I think that's sort of in their hands, but there's no, I don't know how much, I don't know how much detailed information we're going to get on that, but I think
Yeah,
we just need to trust them that they're managing it.
I just wanted it in the minutes that we were aware that there were finite funds and that we are interested at least in that. And I got the amount wrong. I thought it was 250, it was 200. So I'm just talking now about amending the minutes so that it more accurately represents what I was trying in my inept way to ask, which is, are we aware of it? Have we expressed to them, and I think we have, our interest in making sure that whatever we get is used.
As I said,
Because there was some pushback about that during our discussions, right?
I presume it's dependent upon the individual labor rates for each of the participants, and that there's some travel money, perhaps other funds in addition to the labor. But how this translates into labor hours overall, we don't know.
We don't, yeah.
Okay, well, do you want to amend it in some way, Charity?
Yeah, I'll, or strike it. It's okay to strike it.
Okay. Is everybody okay with striking it?
Yes.
Okay, all right, let's just strike it. Okay. Okay. So we got or I got the final scope of work contract, which I signed and sent back to them. It's not that different from for the one you've all seen. I don't know, do you want me to share it on the screen? Or, so I guess my next question is, we now have sort of an idea of where we're going. Do you have any thoughts about it? What you want to see happen that you think, I mean, I guess it's sort of semi-established now, but I guess the one concern I had, and I sent Megan an email about this over the weekend before I signed it, just that I felt like the section 6, I think it is, where it's about figuring out the future for the island, was still sort of like, if there are enough funds available, we will try to do some of these. And I felt like it was sort of, I just wanted that to have more emphasis. But, and again, I'm just sometimes concerned that the re-opt is going to take up a lot of time and money for some places that may not end up being practical. That, you know, it might be better just to call in a solar company, have them look at some of these sites. But anyway, you know, I've mentioned that before. So anyway, does anybody have any thoughts?
Tim, can you email us all a copy of the final?
Yeah, I'll do it right now.
Did
No.
they take some of the locations off, like the medical facility? They did?
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
I just didn't get a chance
yes, I think the IGA is off and the
to. Yeah,
medical's off.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. That's
Um,
good.
Yep, I'll do it right now. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, this also gets to what we were just discussing, which is that their suggestion was that the re-opt process is not that expensive because it's a tool that they have, and, you know, it sounds like a black box, and they put in a site and, you know, the specifics and.
I've actually gone through part of it online. As I said, I don't know how similar it is to what they use. But it's a series of questions, some technical, some non. And as you say, it's a process. It's no coding, at least, is required.
So that may get to the question of, you know, we were looking to trim projects going into the re-opt process, and the pushback that I described is just sort of them saying, you know, that's not actually gonna spend, you know, you're not actually gonna spend a lot less money doing it that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Which we just have to take on, you know, I mean, they know we don't, you know, as you pointed out.
I think it would be helpful to have some clarification about this. I think the re-opt process, correct me if I'm wrong, is the more elaborate analysis that's done after they identify, based on the preliminary analysis, the most promising sites or promising things to look at in that list. So the initial analysis is not that expensive. They just it's a winnowing. And then the re-opt analysis is fairly expensive and elaborate. And that's where we have to, well, they would make choices, or we would with them make choices about what to move into the second layer of more detailed analysis. And that's where the money really is important, because this initial screening isn't, my understanding is it's not all that expensive, and that we wouldn't save a lot by, taking a lot of things out of it because it's not that expensive to begin with. It's the second stage of the process where the money really becomes important.
Yeah, and part of my understanding too is it also depends on the information we can get from PSE&G regarding how in-depth they can go in section 6. So if we get very good data from PSE&G, it'll be easier for them to do some of the build-out analysis in section 6. If we have poor data, or data that's not necessarily in a format that's usable for us, then it would be harder to do that analysis. So some of it will be based on the information we can get from PSE&G. Some of it'll be a combination of what they can pull out of re-opt, and then as we go through the process, they purposely left things kind of open-ended so that we can tweak it and adjust it as we want to as we move forward. That was my understanding. So we'll have some flexibility as we go through it, because they'll show us what they find at each phase, and then we can choose what we want to dive deeper into, or if we want to turn away from something because maybe it didn't look as good as we thought it would be. They left flexibility in the scope of work.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I'm hoping. Go ahead, Don.
I was just saying that, as I said, based on that preliminary investigation, I mean, it's the upfront costs are the collection of the data. Actually processing it, that's no big deal. But you've got to collect it before you can input it. And the accuracy, of course, of that input determines whether it's garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
And one thing, when you look at the contract, because this was a question I had for Meg, 12 North Ferry Road is part of the one of the sites for analysis. But that's not for battery storage, that's for the affordable housing.
Yeah, it's to look at it for all of the potentials, but I did give them the site plan for the community housing so they could see the structures on the site. They could see also the restrictions on the site because there are wetlands there. And they could see where all the neighboring properties were, so they would understand what all the setback requirements were, and they could see how we're planning on using it to see if there's any additional space for anything else. So they're gonna use that when they do the re-op.
That's great.
Yeah, I thought it might be helpful. Instead of
It's
just
nice that
making
we
lots.
have that, you know, and not just an empty lot.
Right.
Any other comments about I just sent you all the contract. I apologize, I should have sent it sooner.
Thanks, Tim.
Sarah Gordon, go ahead.
I'm trying to start my video, but it's not starting for some reason. I see that Sylvester Manor is on the re-opt data collection, required data list. So shall I just start gathering that data, or, oh, here we go. How would you like the Manor team to, to proceed and support this?
I think yesterday I mentioned I was gonna email Brian and the Island Institute team and see what they would need from you
Okay.
or how we should proceed. So,
So I'll just stand by as soon as you want us to start, collecting some of that information that's in the outline. Looking at the schedule, that starting right away, it looks like at the schedule and the scope of work. So, happy to help.
yes, I think your participation will be needed to supply the information.
We'll get a comprehensive list of what they need from you, Sarah, and forward it on, and then you'll be able to collect what you need. Just so you're not going on a wild goose chase and getting information that you think you need, but then they don't need, and
Okay,
so we'll get that to
standing
you.
by.
I mean, it might be, okay, yes, we'll proceed that way. So, I will do it today. And then get that back to you.
Tim,
Thank
is there
you,
any
Tim.
way I can help you? You look like you need to rest. You
No,
want me to,
No,
Yeah.
I'm feeling
right,
it.
if I can, don't hesitate to deputize me to do secretarial work.
No, thank you, Charity. I'm sure I'll be in great shape in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Okay, so, anything else about ETIP? John, actually, do you want to ask John? I've been sort of trying to bring John up to speed with ETIP, and he saw the contract, and you want to ask your questions now, or do you want to ask them?
No, mine was just really about when you read the report, there's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of mention of Green Options Committee to do work with them. And I was just wondering if it might be nice to do like a RACI where we can kind of say like, oh, what is the ETIP doing versus, you know, the organization, what do we have to do versus what do they have to do? You know, because we have to collect data and various other things, but I just thought that might be handy to have like who's doing what. If you read the report, it's quite a lot of, you know, well, you know, we'll help out with this, but we need you to do that. And so I think it'd be kind of nice to organize that, who's doing what, where, at the end of the document could be handy. And then just, you know, with regards to data gathering, it sounds like you guys have already had this conversation about where or how they're trying to amass the data for the overall plan for Shelter Island. You know, there's the mention of, you know, the cables coming in and various other things. You know, is it by neighborhood? Is it by the island? Is it by business? Is it by residential? You know, to your point, you know, what does that overarching data look like versus just the site specific? Because the end of the runway is, you know, we have this resiliency for these kind of, you know, several buildings and organizations within the island, but then, you know, if there is ever a disaster, you know, what kind of redundancies do we need on the island to kind of like keep us somewhat operational, in addition to those, the town hall and the various buildings mentioned. So I was just wondering how they were, you know, going to run that data, or how they're going to separate it out. Is it just, you know, by landmass or is it by district? So I just had a few comments on that, which I could certainly articulate in an email to you guys or something like that as we start going through it. But, you know, just kind of combing through it. It's quite straightforward. I did actually try the re-op tool last night. It's, you know, kind of it's when we did solar on our house, you just go into and you can kind of like run the program, you put the notes in and they do a little study for you. So it's not nothing crazy. But anyway, I'm just kind of getting up to speed and kind of like finding, you know, how we're going to divvy up the tasks within the Green Options Committee, like who does what. You know, there's quite a bit of work to be done, and you know, I'm quite task orientated, so it's like, okay, all right, go off and do that and go and find it, and these are the resources to, you know, make it happen, as opposed to, you know, because it's quite a long process. It's a 2-year thing by the time they finish the report. However, by the summertime, we need to be able to educate the island on, you know, what's going on and like the initiatives that are happening, and you know, what does that messaging look like to everybody. And you know, maybe it's something we do for the expo or ahead of time, as you said, it's going to be on the website. But you know, what does that communication look like, and how do we inform where we are today, where we're going tomorrow, what these people are going to do, and you know, what benefits you'll see from it. You know, what is, you know, if there's somebody that's looking after that part of it, kind of the change management and the communication of that. And who's doing what, basically. Yep, that's really all my take on it. So getting up to speed.
Had his hand up, Tim.
Yep, go ahead. Ben,
Oh,
Christina.
yeah,
Ben?
no, just a quick one. I didn't receive the contract. You said you.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I don't think I'm on your distribution list.
No.
I didn't get it.
It's me. Yeah,
Thanks.
you know, one thing, John, that did happen is we did meet with PSE&G, 2 officials from PSE&G, with the NREL folks and the Island Institute people, and you know, that was just the first. It was like an hour-long discussion, and that was just sort of the beginning of sort of setting up a process of trying to get information from them, and hopefully that.
NREL's gonna kind of take point on communicating with PSE&G to get what they need, because they know the formatting they need, they know what they're looking for, so they're gonna kind of talk more directly. So for us, we'll be collecting more of the local building-specific data, things like that.
But to your point about communication, I mean, I think one of the things that I'm realizing is that you know, they're gathering the data, and there's information in there that we may want to communicate to the community, but there's some work that needs to be done to get it into a form that it can be communicated. So I mean, so about like the cable thing, you know, how many extension cords are we talking about, and what's the effect of one extension cord getting unplugged? know, this is actually something that's probably important for Shelter Islanders to kind of understand, except I don't understand it. And I mean, so we, you know, there's that I think is definitely on my task list, to try to, you know, and that's not the only, you know, that's not the only thing. I mean, I think the re-up tool that they're using, it sounds like it's actually available for homeowners to use.
You can use it as a residential.
Yeah, so that's actually something that people should know about, you know, we should talk about that, you know, and figure out how we wanna, you know, talk to people on Shelter Island about that, you know, under what circumstances they might wanna check it out or use it themselves, and how it's being applied to the bigger questions here. That's definitely something that we should be out in front of. So, yeah, I mean, I guess, I guess the communication is just gonna be, it's just gonna be important for us to sort of, as they're gathering this data, to try to parse it ourselves so that we can communicate about it.
That makes sense.
Just as an aside, yesterday's meeting, of course, was postponed. And because TA wasn't available, is that what Kate said, something like that? What does that mean? Any idea what's going on there?
I can
I
give
think-
you more.
I think what was
uh, um,
Trying to find her note on the line.
Once
Yeah.
you accept it, it disappears.
know.
Yeah, I think what she was saying was that the process, they've started the process and there really wasn't a lot to meet about this week. And so they were just, you know, it would be better to meet in 2 weeks. While I've got the mic, sorry for the background noise. I just wanted to pick up on what Don was saying. And I think we could, I'm sure that the team at NREL is going to have, with the Island Institute, will have some kind of scheduling tool. So maybe a Gantt chart or something like that, but that would be very valuable for us. We could load in our own deliverables, like on the communications, you know, what information do we need to collect? What details do we want to include there? It's a whole, like a scheduling and planning tool that would be very useful.
Mhm.
The
I mean, they
council,
haven't been shy about telling us when they need information and when they need it by. So I assume that will continue, which, you know, is helpful, although maybe some of this we need, you know, we need a little bit more time, you know, time to gather it.
they canceled because the technical work is just beginning and they won't have any major update. They wouldn't have any major updates to discuss at the meeting. So that's why they decided it would be a good idea just to wait up till May 1st. Anything else about ETIP?
No, I think we're good, Tim.
Okay.
Tim, can I just follow up on what John
Yeah,
said?
go ahead. Yep,
You got me?
yep, we hear
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to emphasize that, you know, PSE&G and LIPA obviously have their own plans for reliability, resiliency for the island and the area, you know, the North Fork and the South Fork. And that's part of the discovery process that we're working on with ETIP, with the ETIP folks as well. And again, you know, this is their, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the 3rd round of ETIP participants. So we've kind of been, you know, just to answer John's concerns, and I share them, that, you know, we've kind of let ETIP run this process. It's their 3rd time around, and so you know, they're running this process at this point. But PSE&G and LIPA, of course, have their own plans, and you know, as part of this process, we'll be discovering that, getting more information on that as well.
That's true, and that's why when Don and I went to visit the firehouse in Greenport, that was something that we discovered. And actually, it's something that is ongoing on Shelter Island. I asked that question when we met with the PSG two guys, and that is the updating the wires, the pole wires, which they were doing in Greenport as part of the sort of resiliency plan for Greenport. Larger poles, stronger wires, cables, wires, I guess you should call them. In addition to Greenport doing the solar and battery storage at the firehouse and the wastewater treatment plant. And they are doing that on Shelter Island. So that's definitely something that's in tandem with what we're doing.
Tim, is this the reinforcing of the poles of the, you mean the reinforcements they're putting on the pole? Yeah, I've seen that all over the island, actually. All along Chase Creek, they're all reinforced
Yep.
now.
Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, in the coordination thread that Steve just mentioned, I would just also remind us that the State Department of Public Service, Kerry Gallagher, who's the Long Island chief there, is also interested in coordinating with the process. Because that state agency that generates the funding for all other agencies has a goal of increasing their activity and presence and innovation on Long Island. So just want to make sure you guys loop Kerry Gallagher and her team in,
Yep.
Yep. Quick question. It had been mentioned that we would have a meeting with other cohort 3 participants. And it would be I'm curious as to how the others are doing. Are they at the same stage as we are? Perhaps they're made more progress. So a comparison, I think, would be very interesting. And I thought we were going to have a cohort 3 group meeting, but haven't heard anything about it. Anyone else?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, we did talk about that, and I think part of what's going on too is like each group in the cohort has a different task, like they're looking at something very different. So it kind of depends. Some of them are going in with a very specific scope, like Block Island is looking specifically at their their wind production and things like that. So they have a very clear scope going into it. So I think it kind of depends on each participant's scope of work and what their plan was getting into the program on where they land. So,
But they still have battery storage issues that would be whether, maybe we're generating it through photovoltaic and they're doing it through wind, but, it's still like there's still some overlapping issues. I'm also really interested in knowing about how they're communicating with their, that kind of part of the collaboration, I think, would be very
we should
useful.
definitely reach out to Brian and see if we can set that up,
Mhm,
I think they were trying to get started with our process first.
mhm, mhm.
It's definitely worth reaching out to them.
Yeah, we did talk about that, I think at the last meeting.
Mhm.
But I agree. I think it'd be really interesting at some point. It might be too soon at this point, but maybe in a couple months or whenever they think it's appropriate, to have
So how many people are we talking about? Are these, there are 3 different projects, right?
I'm not sure exactly how many projects are in cohort 3. Let me look.
Thought it was 9.
9. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and we probably need more than,
And
we'd be talking about communicating with more than one person.
right, but the
obviously,
Island
each one.
Institute isn't managing all of those. It's just,
Mhm.
so would we just handle meet with the Island Institute section of cohort 3?
That's what I would think, yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm just trying to find the information on the Island Institute's website.
I think we
Oh,
met
it's-
with them initially
We did.
when this first got set up. And yes, I think it would be great to talk to the Island Institute about when they expect, the next set of meetings to be useful, or what their thinking is on them. Because I agree with Charity. I think it'd be great. I was thinking also it'd be great to compare, communications how they're talking about this with,
Mhm.
people on the island. So,
For that, Christina, sorry.
yes, sorry. I should introduce myself when I start talking.
No, we just missed a little bit of what you said, but that's, I think we got it. There's a publication that Island Institute puts out that has sort of reports from members in the cohort, and I have been reading that, and there's there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. I mean, sometimes it seems like it might, I mean, there, as you said, their projects are different and their geography is sometimes different, but it's I think that it's especially if we went to a meeting like that with some specific questions, I think it could be really useful.
Mhm.
In other words, if we start to identify things that we're wondering about or concerned about, it might be good to go to a meeting like that with those questions, like, how do you deal with X,
Exactly.
Yes, so there's four groups in cohort 3. Deer Isle and Stonington, Maine are modeling various microgrid scenarios at varying levels of detail. Edgartown, Oak Bluffs, and Tisbury on Martha's Vineyard are developing a water distribution network model to identify key resiliency risks and provide recommendations for power and water system upgrades. Block Island is developing a roadmap to 2040, incorporating community-scale renewable energy resource assessment and cost analysis for various scenarios, in addition to supporting the development of community solar pilot program. And then there's us. So those would be the groups we'd be trying to meet with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it sounds like each of them has some overlapping,
Yeah.
I think it would be definitely helpful and informative and interesting. So
Would this be outside the ETIP meetings? Just a meeting arranged through the Island Institute?
yeah, we could ask them, the best way to go about this. And then take it from there.
Yeah, I would think so, because then we're not wasting NREL's resources on it. We can
Yeah.
put their resources into the work they're doing.
I mean, this is something that Jamie and Kate could organize, right?
Yep.
It's not even, I mean, if they say that, it has to, for some reason, be part of it, well, I guess it does, but from our perspective, I don't, it's probably not to our, we don't need that, as far as I could tell.
Okay. I will ask them both that question. Any other thoughts about where we are with?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about our our August event, which I know I keep harping on this, but I think it's just such a great opportunity for us. I mean, basically the whole summer is, but if we focus on that, I think some other communication options will arise along the way. And one of the things that I was reading about was this. Do you know about the heat pump petting zoo? That so it's.
I tell. I know.
So it's basically kind of a traveling heat pump show that's put on by, I think it's basically people who manufacture heat pumps, but they'll, it sounds like, from what I can understand, they'll go to events and set up it's basically a van that has a lot of, information from manufacturers of heat pumps. And, we're talking about hot water, for hot water, for air, variety of home systems, and it's specifically targeted at homeowners. And it's just an opportunity to get people exposed to these things, to see what they look like, to get a sense of how they work, to see what they'd look like in your home, to see what, what it means for, what goes outside the home, or, just the sort of nitty gritty. And it's a way of, selling their products, obviously. But I thought it was something that we could talk about trying to do on Shelter Island, because I don't have a sense of what the pickup is on Shelter Island for that kind of technology. I mean, I think I know probably everybody who gets one talks about it. So,
We have one.
yeah. So, but that doesn't mean that it's widespread.
Right. And is your house right for it? I think
Is your house right for it?
So the point of education, I think, is important. It's very big in Europe at the moment because their temperatures don't go way below freezing, so it's ideal. Whereas we do get those negative temperatures, which can be higher on your electricity bill. But
Yeah.
I think they could be a good education for
All my
people.
friends in Maine are getting them, so I mean.
Must be great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we just got
Yeah,
one.
because they include a heating coil for, places that have colder temperatures. I mean, my house is heated by a heat pump and it works great. But it was easy because it's ducted and I had forced hot air before. So it was really just pull out the old furnace, drop in the new one, drop in the heat pump, and it was done. And for super cold temperatures, it has a extra heating coil, which would affect your electricity bill, but not by that much. I mean, the lights I leave on are worse.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, so I'm talking about, I mean, this is the Green Options Committee, so we have we may have a skewed view of how widespread this, the pickup is on,
This truck or van,
yes,
Are
the petting
they-
zoo, yeah.
petting zoo, are they local in New York State or Northeast or
Well,
what?
the one that I read about is not. This was in DC.
Hmm.
But, I mean,
Great if we get
obviously
to
we
the
investigate this. This was part of Electrify DC.
Okay.
And so we have similar organizations in our area, and so it would be a matter of finding out what's, what
Yeah.
kind of thing is available. But we haven't, our Green Expo has never been, it's been for vendors on Shelter Island primarily, right? I mean,
No.
we've never.
No, not
No.
always. No, in the past, we invited solar vendors and we'd have sometimes 4 of them. And then for a while, we were trying to educate people about the IA systems. And so several IA companies, manufacturers
Right.
would come to the expo. So we have a history of having vendors come.
You could invite HVAC contractors or manufacturers
Exactly.
this year.
Mhm.
So Steve and Ben, who did you use for your systems?
Yeah, so I used an East End contractor. I just want to add that we put the system in about 2 years ago, and about 3 years ago we also put in a PV system, and I had it oversized. And while we're not there, obviously the full year, we're on an annual basis with the PV and the heat pump, and the heat pump providing heat and air conditioning. We're running a net positive on our electricity consumption. And of course, when we put the heat pump in, we also got as a big side benefit central air, which we did not have before. So it's been a big plus for us, and I'm happy to discuss at the Green Expo with anyone. And as far as the petting zoo is concerned, you can come over my house anytime. Anyone can come over my house, and I'm happy to walk you through the system and what we've got. So it's been a good experience for us so far. And following up on what Ben said, yes, there's an electric resistance coil that does provide surge backup when you need it. But I can tell you that during, let's see, it was 2 winters ago, we had a very severe, short but severe cold spell, and we were at the house, and we actually did not have at that point the resistance coil installed, and the house, the compressor system carried the house all the way through at 68 degrees. I would only say that, add that, you know, I go back in the HVAC industry back to the 70s and even before. And while it is true that early on, heat pumps could not carry extreme cold temperatures, they've made enormous strides in the technology over the last, certainly over the last 20 years. And you know, I'm a believer now.
According
And
to articles I've read about Maine, it's absolutely true. Go ahead, Ben.
no, I was just saying, I don't have that experience, that extensive experience. My heat pump's only a couple months old. My propane furnace died, and it just seemed like a perfect opportunity to switch over and upgrade. So I did. So I also have the benefit of having the latest technology in heat pumps. I have the top of the line Bosch German heat pump. And this winter, even though it was pretty mild, I mean, my house was wonderful. I mean, and I haven't gone through a summer yet with it. I mean, I have air conditioning as well. So we'll see how it does on that end, but the heating side was perfect. It was, and my electricity bill went down significantly.
I mean, it sounds like all great points. So look for the expo itself. What are we showcasing at the expo this year? And is it going to be a combination of solar, IA, heat pumps? Is there a specific topic that we focus on?
We could do whatever, we could do all of them, I guess, if we wanted, but I don't know, Tim,
Well,
have we ever had, I don't know if we want a balance between, commercial
well-
sort of.
When we invite companies to come to the expo, we need to reach out to a number of companies. They can always say they can't come, but we have to make that gesture so that we're not seen as favoring one company over another.
Yeah, that's what I kind of liked about this petting zoo aspect, because it wasn't one manufacturer that so, maybe I need to research this and see what we think, what sort of thing we could attract, if there is something comparable for Long Island to electrify DC, maybe start with that and see if we could, because I think it's better to have more than one vendor. I also I wonder about most of you worked through contractors, is that right?
Yes.
Did the contractor choose the vendor? Yeah,
That gave us some options to look at. And we
Yeah.
just
right.
I
So
just had my
think-
regular HVAC guy who's looked after my house for years. He just came and did it.
Right. So I think I think what we're trying to do is a sort of higher level education for people to, show them maybe a variety of these devices. Some people aren't aware that there's a hot water, you can use them just for hot water or whatever. So, that and not recommend specific manufacturers or one manufacturer.
Can do that.
Can I just add that, in terms of the modern air source heat pumps, they're all fairly comparable, and they're all similar technologically. I would just say that obviously you want to choose a contractor who's using equipment that's available, not only available locally, but if you need to get parts down the road, that stuff that support network is there too, obviously. But the equipment is fairly comparable across the board.
So maybe it's not a question of having, contractors but really it's more of an educational. like to
Yes,
use those
this
as
is educational.
Right.
That's
Have you
the idea.
considered it?
And you sort of have to figure out how to approach the financial analysis, because that's where the savings are. I mean, for me, it was a little different. I went from propane to heat pump. So, you know, I'm not paying $3 a gallon for propane anymore. But, and the heat pump is incredibly efficient on electricity. So there's a real significant savings for that kind of switch. But
Yeah, let me add on to what Ben just said. Before we had the heat pump in, we also had an energy audit done, and we had a lot of upgrade to the shell efficiency of our house. And let me, you know, at this point underscore the great importance of the shell efficiency of your house. It's not just about installing a heat pump. You want to make sure you have more than adequate insulation, that the house isn't losing more heat. So it's part of a whole upgrade process for your house, not simply your systems. And
Steve?
so, you know, we have to speak to that as well.
Steve, you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the
well,
board needs
think-
to remember that on Shelter Island, for a lot of people, shell efficiency means that you do a really good job of getting all your oysters into the driveway.
exactly. You know.
So I don't think
the-
I think this is an education challenge. We just need to, you know, I mean, I think we
Right.
need to get to people where they are, and, you know, and this group is at a higher level.
Right.
Yes, the question is, what information do we provide on the various incentives at the state or federal level? With the recent legislation, and as well as inviting vendors on in. Is that what you are suggesting?
I'm suggesting giving people a sense of what they look like, of how they work, of how much noise they make, of what the change is in the environment of your home, and an idea of the kinds of savings that people on Shelter Island have seen
Mhm.
by getting these devices.
Mhm.
So do we prepare all this ourselves, or are you relying largely on these vendors to provide the information?
So I'm not talking about extremely detailed information that I would amass. I'm talking about relying on the agencies. I think PSE&G might be a resource for this, and the agencies that we work with to get general information about what incentives are available and what kinds of efficiencies people could see. But I want this to be more down to earth. Maybe some of you who have made these conversions could be available to talk about them, and we could show people what some of these devices look like. I guess that's you could talk informally about what contractors you've used. That's that's fine.
So Sarah, go ahead.
Just wanted to add the focus on nonprofit and other institutional or business organization potential in this realm. Sylvester Manor, the Manor House project is going from propane to all electric air source heat pumps. And we've connected with the team at PSEG, which is called Long Island Energy Efficiency Program Planning, Engineering, and IT Systems. They have a very proactive group at PSEG that will walk organizations through, that are functioning at a commercial scale, institutional scale, through the process of selecting systems and equipment to make sure that they qualify for the biggest possible rebates. PSE&G is offering significant, they have a lot of funding, I think state and federal funding through the infrastructure bill. So just remember that we can also be working to educate non-residential about the benefit of converting. We won't have any results at the manor until after, the construction is complete, but the design phase is really illuminating. Our architects are working directly with this team at PSE&G and the architects and engineers. And that's really exciting because it's going to save this project a lot of money. So telling businesses that if they're upgrading at all, they want to make sure to take advantage of these really helpful, delightful guys who are subcontracting. Their firm is called TRC Companies is a subcontractor for PSE&G specifically
Mhm.
for this. They do the modeling and the oversight. You submit your plans to them as early as possible and they tell you, yeah, that'll qualify, or you might want to try this and has to be a certain rating and all of that. But it's just been a very, very positive and pleasant process to work with the PSEG's efficiency people.
Would they come to the expo?
Well, this is a different kind
maybe.
of outreach. You're talking about Sarah, you're talking about outreach to businesses,
Right.
and organizations, yeah? I think that's really interesting. Has the Tim, I don't even know, has the Green Committee done specific outreach to, I mean, so for instance, I understand that the folks who there are new owners or new leasers at what used to be Bob's Fish Market and was another fish market, and they're going to be doing some renovations. So is this, maybe the Green Options Committee should reach out to them and make sure they know about this, or, I mean, do we have any, have we done that before? No.
We have not, but excuse me, not a bad idea. Sarah, before I forget, can you send us all that information?
Yes, I'll forward you the contacts at PSEG. There's a guy, the PSEG guy, and then this subcontractor firm. They were very quick to set up a Zoom with the Sylvester Manor team and the architects to, just kind of point in the right direction, and they're quite accessible. So I'll email you their names and contact.
Great, thank you. Christina, you have a question?
No, well, I just have an additional source of information. So NYSERDA has, as part of their website, New York State Clean Heat, and they give a lot of details on cold climate heat pump and heat pumps and their benefits. Lots of, like the benefits of switching, how they work, compare your options, what to expect, how to get started. So it just really looks like a great website. Would answer a lot of questions. I think it's always useful to have people on site to answer people's specific questions about their own buildings or, their homes. So I would say if we can find some vendors, who could just talk to people, that's often more effective than the written materials, but the written materials are definitely available. So
I think,
Does that information or website, does it address the math problem, the financial aspect of it?
I think in another part of the site, it also
Yeah,
talks
you
about
can
the
do-
rebates
you-
available from New
You can
York.
do analyses. You can, it's, I guess it's maybe an elementary version of the REOP thing. You can do, there are online analyses you can do that the power companies provide in various places. That will help you figure out to some extent based on what you've got, what you might save. But I'm really thinking
Okay.
of this more as this is an in-person event that I'm focused on how people can experience this at an in-person event. We're going to have, like a group of people who can touch and yes, they can talk and they can take away printed documents and we can send them to websites. But I'm thinking of this as a communication opportunity that's more tactile.
Okay, well, that's important, and that's another reason why I keep bringing this up. There's sticker shock involved. The heat pump system I put in was twice as expensive as me just replacing my furnace, my propane furnace with a new propane furnace. The heat pump was double the cost, but which is, will stop a lot of people right dead in their tracks. But, I sat down and did the math, and by not buying propane at $3 a gallon, I pay, I get the difference back in under 3 years. So it makes sense. 3 years, you're free.
I think,
You're whole anyway.
Yeah.
There are also a lot of subsidies now because of the IRA. And I
Yes.
believe that New York State also has subsidies, which, we can dig into this, but
Yeah, I only qualified for the federal one, and that was 30% or capped out at $2,000 or $3,000. The other ones I didn't qualify for.
Okay, so how about I'll research the petting zoo concept and then also pull together what accessible information I can about rebates and tax incentive types of documents for the green options fair
Expo.
expo.
I mean, we can have a table. We have, lots of tables. So we could have a table, we could have a table devoted to this.
Mhm. I
And-
think we should.
Usually the idea is just having very digestible 11 by 17 cards that people can literally walk along and read. And then Ben and Steve will volunteer to be there to answer homeowner questions.
Sure.
And then if you want to include other information about pricing, rebates, all of that stuff, we can have all that information too. And vendor.
I gotta jump. Tim, I gotta go.
Okay, all right,
Thanks.
bye. One other thing we should have, because Steve brought it up, is we should, you can get free home energy audits. And we used to sort of push that at previous expos, and we haven't done it for a couple of years. But that could sort of work in concert with this, where people should have their homes audited for
Sure.
insulation, all that other stuff.
Start with the basics. Start with the basics. Okay, gotta go. Thanks.
bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Steve.
So, okay, this is great. I think it's a great idea, Charity.
Well, I didn't have it. I just passed it on, but thank you.
Well, I know you're gonna do wonders with it. Okay, we're at 10:01. Does anybody have anything else they want to add? New business? Any thoughts? One thing I wanted to mention, I read this in this North Fork paper, the Southold has extended a moratorium for another year on the battery energy storage systems, the one that had become controversial. And they've extended the moratorium for another year to think about them.
And what's their main objection? Is it a firefighting issue?
Fire is a big thing. The neighbors in the area where it was going to go were concerned. There were a couple of concerns,
Okay.
but as I pointed out when Don and I went to, and they're not comparable, but when we went to visit the firehouse, we didn't go to see the wastewater treatment plant because it's the same setup. But the battery there was minuscule in a large storage unit. But it's not at all comparable, and when they were doing this, they were very upfront about what they were doing and nobody objected. So I think it might have been the size of the system that was being proposed. Anyway, I just mentioned that.
I think there's another aspect to the sort of I don't know if publicity is the right word, but to the sort of word of mouth around battery storage and these batteries, and that is that I think that our firefighters there's a lot of unease in fire departments about this. There's special training that they're
They just have
getting, and I think it's the reality of what's involved in fighting these kinds of fires is up front with firefighters, and it's a whole new thing, and it's not something that especially the old timers I think are necessarily all that comfortable with. I mean, I think it's difficult. I mean, in interviews with some Shelter Island firefighters, I have had firefighters say to me, we haven't had too many of these out here yet, and I hope we don't have any because they're scary. So I think, I'm not saying that I just think it's something that we need to be aware of as we talk about battery storage and EVs and, as these technologies come on, that there's some legitimate and sometimes maybe not so legitimate fear around it.
Yeah, no, and actually New York State governor is looking into this also. because it's becoming more of a, sort of, people want to move ahead, it's becoming more of an issue, so. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Okay,
Tim,
oh,
I just have a question. So I wasn't able to, because I was at a conference, I wasn't able to join the last Green Options Committee, but I watched the very interesting meeting recording. And I'm wondering if we have a plan to have Lynn Arthur come back to join us in the May meeting, perhaps by which time she would presumably have information from what Southampton has decided to do on
yes,
its
we will-
community
we
tree
will-
segregation.
yes, we will have an update on that and have her back when appropriate. Elise, do you have any questions for us before we walk out the door?
I do, just real quick, because I know you guys are going over your time. Do you have a comprehensive overall list of the issues that you're all handling at this point?
Actually, it's an interesting question. We have a mission statement, but that's kind of vague. I'm not sure that we actually do.
Our minutes are a matter of public record.
Yeah, no, but I was just looking for overall topics that you're all dealing with now. So I'm picking up a lot of information here, and thank you, that's great. But I'm actually was looking to see also if your committee would be handling something like composting.
Yes.
We are actually.
Okay. I was very interested in that. I've spoken to Amber about that. I wasn't sure what committee would be handling that. I figured it might be you, but yeah, I just kind of like I know you have agendas and I could go back through all of them, I guess. But if you had something, whereas you had all of your topics and all of the things like the Green Expo I know is coming up, but anything else that you're dealing with, at what level or what period you're at with all of those topics?
No, that's actually a good idea and a good observation. We have been working on compost initiatives, and the Green Committee is also collaborating with the Water Advisory Council on working on updating or actually creating a fertilizer code and creating a brochure for residents about fertilizers.
Right.
So we have a couple of things going on, not just this one project.
I would
So-
love to see that in the paper. I would love to see that, somewhere where we're gauging where we are with a lot of these things. I mean, I mean, we're not, I know if everybody's got things to do, and I'm very much appreciative of this group. And when we get to the island full time, be able to do that. But just in the times that we go, we're up there every month. But it's very frustrating to go to the dump and see some of the things that people try to recycle and or wasting, and we compost. We go to the dump very, very rarely for a lot of things. But in any event, I appreciate this group, and hopefully at some point I'll be able to help out.
And recycling is another thing we've been working on. It took a while, but the recycling center now accepts number 5 plastic.
I know, but where does it go? Number 5 doesn't go anywhere,
No,
unfortunately.
it actually
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
It goes to Winter Brothers. So, and they actually
Alright.
do with it. But
But that's a good point, because, but again, there's an education. I could never work at the dump because I would kill half the people that are walking in there with pizza boxes that are greasy that they put in with the cardboard. But anyway,
we know all about that.
I know. So I have to restrain myself. But
It's a-
anyway,
Yes, it's an ongoing challenge to get people to clean the plastic properly. I mean, if you're gonna take it there and make the effort to do it, you might as well make the extra effort of
I know.
actually cleaning it.
I know.
So-
But well, we've come a long way. I've been on the island many years, and it's been wonderful. So I appreciate the group, and thank you for all the information, and keep up the good work.
Okay, well,
Oh, when is the expo anyway?
I believe it's gonna be August 19th. It's on the same day as the craft fair, which I think was on the 19th.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
feel free to come back.
I will. Thanks.
Okay. All right, does anybody else have anything else?
Tim, I just sent those contacts
Yes.
at PSEG that the manor's working with, except I don't have your new members' email, so please forward that.
Okay. I will do that for Jonathan.
Great.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Make a
you.
motion to close the meeting.
Second,
All in favor? Okay,
Yep.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Feel better, Tim.
Yeah,
yeah, feel better.
Yeah.
I will. Okay, thank you all. Bye.
bye-bye.